The Racing Pod on Off the Ball.
And you're welcome to episode 8 of the Racing Pod and Off the Ball. John Duggan and Johnny Ward with you. Remember, we're here every Friday with analysis, race previews, tips, stories, interviews and a bit of crack. The first half of the pod each week is free to air. The second part exclusively for members. So be sure to sign up by going to offtheball.com/join. For members this week, we will talk about the Patrick Mullins, Danny Mullins spat and preview the Lauders of Naas Novice Hurdle. That takes place at Naas on Sunday. So subscribe now for all the juicy info. My racing buddy, Johnny Ward, how are you?
Very well, JD. Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year, Johnny. I was at Leopardstown on the last day of the Christmas festival, the 29th, and I was watching the TV at Limerick. You were there doing some interviews. I've never seen a madder race day in a long time. You had crazy winners, 16 to 1, 14 to 1, 14 to 1, 50 to 1 and 9 to 1. It seemed every time I was looking at a race there was a horse being collared by a shepherd's crook and horses coming from the clouds to win. Even a horse called the Graveyard Bookie, one of the best names I've seen for a horse in quite a while.
Yeah, like the whole, I know it's your first show back, JD, since I suppose we're on before Christmas, and the Christmas was just fantastic. The fact that the racing went ahead across the 3 Irish meetings was remarkable, really. The ground looked so bad on day one. I was very, very worried. Britain obviously suffered, but like the ground staff deserve a lot of credit. I think we had some incredible performances as well. Like Christmas is really all about racing. Racing is all about Christmas in some respects, and to be there at Limerick one of the days and see the crowds at Leopardstown, the crack that was had. We'll talk a bit, I think, JD, as well about the smallish crowd at Kempton relative to the crowds holding up in Ireland. But those who went in Ireland, we saw some amazing performances, as you mentioned, some shocks as well, and really kind of set the tone for 2024, I think. Isn't that the year now, 2024? Yeah. It's
great to subscribe, and we're bumping ourselves up here because I believe when I was away, you had a nap that won at Christmas.
Yeah, my nap was Meeting of the Waters, 10 to 1, so no excuses if you didn't get involved. David Jennings' nap actually came third, so if you did an each way double, you were handsomely paid as well. So, yeah, and I do believe the last time you were on, JD, we didn't do too badly as well.
We had a 356 to 1 double. This is one thing that happens maybe every decade. I didn't have a cent on it myself, and that's always the way it goes. It was Chambard who I put up for the free to air at 18 to 1 in the Beecher Chase, and then Le Patron in the race of Sandown. We both put that up for members at 20 to 1, so an 18 to 1 and 20 to 1 double. So look, we're putting the work in, folks, and like, we'd love you to follow us and sign up. But what I want to do, Johnny, is maybe pick out 5 performances over Christmas and New Year, because as you said, there were so many great equine performances. I want to start with Galopin Des Champs, right? So he is the Gold Cup winner at Cheltenham. He won the Irish Gold Cup last year, obviously beaten at Punchestown. Disappointed in the John Durkin on his seasonal reappearance, but at Leopardstown, a 23-length win over horses that are decent, Conflated, Jerry Colomb, who was seen as the young pretender at Plutard, sadly seems to be the light of other days. But Paul Tennant got into a rhythm, out jumping in the front of the race in terms of being in the van, as it were, being out in front, got him into a lovely rhythm, and the horse was just displaying the form that saw him take everything before him in the big races last year in terms of the Gold Cup at Cheltenham, which was his big target. So I can't see him being beaten in March. What did you make of it?
Yeah, you asked me to go with 5 horses in terms of kind of virtuosity performances over the Christmas. You picked 5, and I'm not being lazy here, but I think your 5 are spot on, and this was one of them. And when you lose a race twice and at short odds as he did at Punchestown, obviously either side of the summer, and I said this going into Christmas, I thought he was vulnerable, albeit I put up Fast or Slow, who was one of 2 significant non-runners of the race, but it was still a very good race. It was interesting to see Gordon Elliott doesn't believe Jerry Colomb was at his best. That could be true. I mean, if you look at Jerry Colomb, he was ahead of Capodanno, who's an 80 to 1 rated 158 horse who didn't particularly jump well. So the one proviso I would say is I think Galopin Des Champs is probably a little bit flattered, but at the same time he won this. He won a Grade 1 by 23 lengths. He wasn't fully extended, and I wasn't watching him running, Judy, but I'd say he was just short the whole way. He was really into a rhythm, and I think there were justified concerns after the tough races that he's had. It's very, very hard to keep a staying chaser on the go for a long time. He's had 16 starts now. I think there were justified concerns after the last day. I thought he was a little bit flat at Punchestown. Maybe it was a tactical enough race and didn't suit him, but after this performance, performance, which on Racing Post ratings was right up there with his Gold Cup win. He's right back, although I still think you need a bit of luck to win a Gold Cup, so he's making the price for others if you're that way inclined.
Well, I know he stays now. We know he stays because he got the Gold Cup trip last year. Paul Tennant rode him to stay. So it's going to be a more, I suppose, a less complicated ride now in the Gold Cup for Galopin des Champs. You give him a bit of daylight, you get him out jumping. I mean, what can go wrong?
I think that's definitely a key point. I mean, last year held up in rear, not fluent fifth. And I remember watching the Gold Cup is an incredible test. The fences just come at you so fast. There are so many of them. You need luck and running to ride a horse like that. Paul Townend got it. He beat Braveman's Game comfortably. Braveman's Game ridden totally differently. I completely agree with you, JD. I think this year, as at Leopardstown, they're going to ride him differently. Just don't go too hard, but just keep him out of trouble. And it should be much simpler than last year. But as I say, he's a short enough price to Gold Cup, and maybe we'll put up something later on to beat him.
Album Photo won 2 Gold Cups. I think Galopin is better. I suppose the only thing is, do you run him with the Dublin Racing Festival? I probably wouldn't. I'd probably just bring him straight to Cheltenham now, I would say.
Yeah. I think Willie Mullins will probably make the right call on that. I mean, at the same time, he's had a couple of starts since April. It's not like I don't think they're overly worried about Punchestown after Cheltenham, so they could probably run him. I don't really see a big negative in running between here and the middle of March. Now, he might take on fast or slow maybe at the Dublin Race Festival. We do need these horses coming out as well, JD. I mean, his owner doesn't need the money. The horse is already a Gold Cup winner. He's obviously going back to win the Gold Cup, but let's bring him to Leopardstown. And it's hard to believe Willie Mullins hadn't won the Gold Cup until relatively recently.
British racing's in trouble, Johnny. We've said it before. It's in real trouble, I feel, especially on the jumps side of things. There was 29,000 people at the King George Chase to see Desert Orchid in 1991, the Racing Post reported. 11,700 to see Hewitt win there on St. Stephen's Day. 17,000 almost at Leopardstown, a country, a 12th of the size of the UK. Hewitt, who I don't think is... He's a lovely story, lovely horse. But to be honest, Hewitt winning the King George, is that really the top form you could be seeing? British racing is really struggling. There's too much racing over there. There's a dearth of quality in terms of their horses. Take Constitution Hill out of it, I don't know what you have. And the reason why I'm saying that is because Ile-France, the second horse I'm picking, is not even going to go to Cheltenham. He's going to go to the Grand Steeplechase de Paris in May.
Yeah, all of what you said there, it's very valid. And if British racing doesn't need it, like, it has had an absolute spate of cancellations due to the weather as well. And you see, Sandown called off tomorrow. Some of the racetracks, Huntington and Southwell Underwater, Paul Nicholls' yard hit bad with it. Like, it's been really, really hit hard with cancellations at a time when, it really kind of needs some good news. You could probably write a book on the demise of British jumps race, and they only had a third of the runners in the Grand National last year trained in Britain. But for me, JD, that Kempton figure was actually quite shocking because, Irish racecourse attendances aren't great, but, it's hard to get people racing now. But the festivals are, by and large, holding up. And you mentioned good crowds at Leopardstown. I was inundated with requests to get tickets for Leopardstown. I couldn't get them. Like, it was really, really in demand. For Kempton, I thought this King George was an exceptionally, not an exceptional renewal, but it was a very good renewal. There was no reason not to go. There was some really good race on the undercard. As far as I recall, the weather wasn't too bad. It was a desperate crowd. Kempton is struggling to kind of, keep, I suppose, the reputation and the grandeur that it had. But this, for me, was extremely disappointing and kind of alarming as well. Ile-France, on the other hand, he was exceptional. I love the way James Reevely talks about him, and the way he's kind of been trained is symptomatic of where British racing is going. But brilliant performance from him.
Yeah, Ile-France and Noel George, and he kind of reminds me a lot of the Fellow and Long Run. These are kind of horses that were suited to 3 miles going right-handed back in the day. 3 miles, 6 furlongs for the Grand Steeplechase de Paris. I think this horse actually wants shorter, but I love the way he, just showed that cruising speed, just had the race to bed quite early doors, and he's a really exciting horse, Ile-France.
Yeah, and like Hermes End, who he beat, to be fair, he went to short price in the Ballymore last year. He actually still is a very good horse. I mentioned James Reevely, obviously he's jockey. James Reevely comes from like proper National Hunt Northern stock, and the fact that Noel George is training this horse the way he is, it's just reflective of the way that British racing has gone. That the opportunities in terms of prize money in that are poor, and British racing in general in the Northern Circuit, Southern racing racing, the whole British racing circuit, it's difficult to get bang for your buck, really. And the owners are kind of immigrating out of the country. A lot of them coming to Ireland. Interesting interviews there with Gavin Cromwell in the race post today about targeting the British meets. And Ile France, he's only 6, just turned 6. He's a very, very good horse, and it'll be great to see him at some stage take on the Irish, because, as you mentioned, he's not likely to go to Cheltenham.
My third horse that I'm picking is Grange Clare West. Finally living up to the hype. Cost 430,000 sterling for Cheveley Park Stud. Went off the rails in his novice hurdle campaign. Got his act together, though, over fences in spectacular fashion at Leopardstown. Jumps and gallops like he hammered good yardsticks. Corbett's Cross, Favre de Champdou, Florian Porter, former Stayers hurdle winner. I think I'd rate him ahead of Fact to File. Grange Clare West is one for me for Cheltenham.
Yeah, as you mentioned, JD, at the start, in the second half show, we're going to talk about the Lawlers of Naas Hotel, Lawlers Hotel race in Naas on the Sunday, and it just keeps throwing up good horses. This lad was sent off 15 to 8. I remember in January there was a lot of chat about him. He was beaten by Cham Kiley. He was well beaten on the day, beaten 11 lengths. He goes to Cheltenham then, and goes to Leopardstown, rather, beaten 21 lengths. I thought, like, is the hype going to be true about this horse? He's been absolutely brilliant over fences, and this was a proper performance. Corbett's Cross, for me, like, he was 10 lengths clear of Florian Porter, and he was beaten, well beaten by the winner. And I was wondering with Corbett's Cross, was he going to be in love with the trip on really testing ground? I kind of think he pretty much ran his race.
He's not a natural. He doesn't strike me as a natural over fences, Corbett's Cross. The winner does.
Yeah, it could be. And obviously he had his blip at Cheltenham last year. There could be a bit of that, but he still beat Florian Porter 10 lengths. Florian Porter going the right way, and he's going straight to Cheltenham now, and they think they have a chance. And, you know, Grange Clare West performance, if you back this horse at 4-1, you're thinking all your Christmases literally came at once. It was an unbelievably good performance. Lives up to the hype. I didn't see any fluke about it at all. He's a natural jumper, beautiful looking horse, and can't wait to see him at Cheltenham.
I'm leaving Gaelic Warrior and Fact to File out of my 5 here that you agree with. Marine Nationale is my 4th one. 6 wins out of 6. Supreme Novice Hurdle winner, as we know from last year at Cheltenham. I thought to myself, first run of the season, desperate ground, deep ground. He was brilliant. He jumped cleverly. This could be one of the great champion chasers of the future if he stays sound. Marine Nationale, Barry Connell knows he's got the best horse he's ever had.
Yeah, you're on about the horse you're leaving out. We'll talk more about Gaelic Warrior in the second half of the show. He could definitely have been brought in, but kind of he's already done that in terms of his maiden chase performance. But this was right up there for me, Nacional. I laid this horse on the basis that the ground was he's supposed to want nice ground. His pedigree and all that is kind of for nicer ground, and they were worried in the Royal Bond last season that the ground was too soft for him. I was looking at the ground in the 27th. It was given a soft on the chase track. It looked absolutely desperate. I'm almost certain that he was going too fast. I think Michael O'Sullivan didn't intend to ride him at all like this, and I'm speculating a bit, but he was just so fresh in himself. He was jumping so boldly. He and Fede Brazil went on together, and Fede Brazil couldn't jump as well as he was jumping, even though he wasn't too bad at the fences himself. Marine Nationale was essentially so good, he soon kind of careered off. And I suppose the one caveat was, Oh My Lord, I thought was still travelling okay. But he ends up beating Firm Footings, who was an 8-1 shot, by 8.5 lengths after going too hard on ground that almost certainly wasn't ideal for him on his first go over fences. And don't let the name kind of throw you here. This was basically a grade 2 or grade 1 masquerading as beginner's chase. He was utterly exceptional. It was a wow performance for me. Barry Connell, you got to remember, Barry has invested a lot of money in racing. He was desperately unlucky with our Connor. There was a while when it looked like he was a bit jinxed in terms of the bad luck he was having. Now that he's training and he has good horse and a good team behind him, I genuinely think we're dealing with one of the superstars of my lifetime here. I thought he was exceptional, and I'm just gutted I didn't back him for the Arkle when he was 5-1 last year.
It was World War I ground in the trenches at Leopardstown that day, from what I was looking at it and from the comfort of my own room at home. The last one I'm going to pick is Irish Point in the colours of Brian Atchison, Rob Coeur. This horse to me is maturing. I think the talent is there. He beat a Francais in a flat race in France, and then he lost by a head to Marine Nationale in the Royal Bond at Ferryhouse last season. And then he went off the ball. He came back at Aintree, won there, ran all the way to the line in the Stairs Hurdle trial, the Jack de Bromhead Christmas Hurdle at Leopardstown. I feel he's got more scope than their other runner, Tiupu, in the same colours, same stable, Gordon Elliott. I really like this Irish Point.
Absolutely, JD. Yeah, he's by Joshua Tree, who wouldn't have had that many horses on the ground. And as you mentioned, now the same connections have these two exceptional stayers. And David Jennings was really sweet on Irish Point in our conversation before Christmas. I wasn't entirely sure that he'd get the trip, certainly not as easily as he did on ground. This was heavy ground as well on the 28th. Again, it was very demanding. I suppose you could say Bodie One didn't run his race, was pulled up home by the lead. I was very disappointed in him, beating 20 lengths for a horse. They changed the tactics with him, and he didn't necessarily look happy. He started rallying then coming into the straight, but he ended up being legless sort of jump in the last, beating 20 lengths for a horse that, won the race last year. Having said that, there's no way he would have beaten Irish Point. He cantered through the race, conclusively showed he stayed. And again, I might be getting ahead of myself here, but I think we're dealing with a proper staying prospect. I think could be a really, really good stayer for the years to come. We haven't had one of them since the era of kind of big bucks and, the English Dreamer days where we had these really, really established, brilliant staying hurdlers. Irish Point was 5 years old. He's 6 years old now. He's completely a blank slate really over the 3 miles. Ridden with a lot of confidence, absolutely no issue going back on better ground. Won on good to soft at entry last year, and this goes to show. I mean, what could he actually be in terms of a staying prospect? The Dam was actually a chase winner as well. Where are they going to go with him? But for me, he will take all the beating, I think, at Cheltenham.
I don't think I've ever backed the winner of that race, the Stars Hurdle. It's my bogey race. Is it your bogey race? Do you have a bogey race?
Most races are bogey race for me, but the stairs hurdle, yeah, like the Grand National will be my bogey race. I don't think I've ever backed the winner of the Grand National. Stairs hurdle, I backed I would have backed sort of winners in. I backed Big Bucks one of the years when he was a short price, probably to kind of get out of jail on the day. But I think it's kind of been a race in recent years that just hasn't really had a star. Florent Porter's a decent horse, but it's kind of made for a horse to break through. I think we found that at Cheltenham, or at Leopardstown rather.
We're going to, before we go to the member section, naps of the year. It's so goodwill feeling of 2024 and all that kind of thing. And we had such a great Christmas at Leopardstown and Limerick and all that and Kempton. So I'm going to go with City of Troy for the 2,000 guineas and Epsom Derby double. You can get 11-4, almost 3-1 on that. Make mine a double J, and we're going to get your horse as well for the double each way double. Just the quotes made in O'Brien after he won the Dewhurst Stakes at Newmarket last year of this 2-year-old City of Troy. I've never seen a horse that doesn't get tired. He goes again, go into the line again. I've never seen a horse where we don't know where the limit is. We usually push them to the limit. We can never find his limit. He's done it the hard way as well. That was in terms of running that in front, but he would be delighted to get a lead. There's no doubt he's the best 2-year-old I've trained. This horse to me is the best horse I've seen from a 2-year-old since Frankel. He quickens clear. He's got a devastating turn of foot. If he stays, I think the world is his oyster. I think we need a star in flat racing. I think this could be the horse, City of Troy.
Yeah, I'll go against you with the Derby with Diego Velasquez, who I think is going to be overpriced on the basis of he's run the last year on heavy. But I did an interview in the Currency with Aidan O'Ryan over the Christmas, spoke about City of Troy, and he spoke very, very favourably about him. All is going well, and I think he'll take a lot of beating the Guineas. I'm going to go for a sporting one, maybe the heart ruling the head a bit, but I'm going to go with Gentleman's Game for the Gold Cup. Mouse Mars's horse was one horse that didn't, he decided to sidestep Christmas. I actually think this might work out okay because the ground was really bad. I think Mouse will be smiling, and come Cheltenham, obviously already beat Brave Man's Game in his seasonal comeback. He's very unexposed. I think he's a lot of class, and as we mentioned earlier on, a certain horse is making the market for the others in the Gold Cup. So that would be a nice double, JD, that double treble nay-say that the two of us have. 25-1
each way for Gentleman's Game, who trained by a legend in Mouse Mars, who knows how to get one ready for a big race, as he did with War of Attrition in the Gold Cup back in 2006. This is the Racing Pod on Off the Ball. If you're listening to the free version of the podcast, we'll be leaving you here. But if you're looking for more, including our analysis of the Loaders of Naas Novice Hurdle at the Kildare track on Sunday, and a look ahead to action as well at Cork this weekend, go to offtheball.com/join to subscribe and get the full podcast every Friday with all of our racing tips, insights and stories from the week's action.